What is going on, everybody? We're here. We're live over on the RK Outpost live channel, the channel that almost never gets used. But I just felt spur of the moment, I need to go live and talk about House of the Dragon because the first two episodes I didn't do a review on. I talked about it while I was on live stream, but I never really delved into it. I honestly am just loving this show. I really am. I didn't think I would. I did not think that I was going to enjoy House of the Dragon. Game of Thrones left a very bad taste in my mouth, along with so many other people. So when we realized that they were going to go forward with this prequel, House of the Dragon, and especially once we started seeing so much from the cast and crew about, well, it's going to focus on identity politics, it's going to focus on all these things, that was a big warning sign. And a lot of people immediately felt like this is not the way, this is not going to work, it's going to be bad. But lo and behold, it's come out, and I got to be honest, the first three episodes have me incredibly intrigued. I've really been looking forward to Sundays to watch this, and I haven't felt that way about something in quite a long time. I did have really liked things like Terminal List and Cobra Kai and things like that over the past few months and years. But those are not like event things. Those are not, oh, it's coming out at this time, get excited for this time. It's like those got dumped. One of them got dumped on Amazon Prime. One of them got dumped on Netflix. I love the idea that each and every Sunday, as of right now, as it stands after 3 episodes, I actually have something to look forward to when it comes to House of the Dragon. But let's say hi to the chat before we get too into it. I want to give people an opportunity to come in here, and speak a little bit before we get into it. How is everyone's It is Labor Day, isn't it? It's Labor Day today. Yes, it is. Stay Classy is here. Says, glad you like the show, Ryan. It's a good one so far. I agree. It doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Certainly does not mean it's going to stay that way. But we can all hope that it will. Bobo Yogi says, help, why am I here? I don't know. Am I going to be radicalized? Survey says yes. Survey says yes. Her and the Steadfast is here. What's up? Stone Cold's Beer Cooler. Bruce is here. Shake from Hunger Team is here. I am not important. I'm enjoying the show so far. It'll be interesting to see Ryan's opinion. Thank you. I am not important. Dominic is here. Late and Galadriel. Yes, Late and Galadriel. Dr. Dragon. Dark Lord present. Matt Smith's acting is so good he didn't even have to speak. That's true. Matt Smith, I guess I could rewatch the beginning and see. I think he says something in the opening sequence on Dragonback, but it's nothing of note. It's basically just like a crab feeder or something like that. But yeah, doesn't really have any real lines in this episode, but somehow it's the most memorable part because Matt Smith he just has a presence, and I think he's perfect for this character, at least what we've seen so far of him. So yeah, Matt Smith is awesome in this role. Layden Elron, that's pretty good. Layden Rackets, Layden Jeremy's Pre-Torn Jeans, all different ways of saying late and gay. Darkside Droids is here. Raptors is here. Tom Galvin, TD, Judah Khan. Hugo M says, hail RK Outpost. Thank you. You were trying to enjoy your Labor Day, and then I show up. Yeah. Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Other than watch. That's obviously what you're going to do. Justin Simone is here. What's up? Green-haired anti-liberal. Yeah, you got to catch up on Cobra Kai because that's coming out very soon. And that's going to be really good. That's going to be really good. Scott is here. Blue Hawk. You should join Gary when he does his live review. Listen, Gary does his live review surrounded by Titans. He's got Mauler and he's got Shad on there. That's awesome. And I watch it a little bit after those guys because if you guys pay attention to my Sunday streams, I run right up till 9 o'clock, which is when House of Dragon comes out. Then I end my chat with locals because I do that exclusive chat on locals. Then I talk to my patrons and channel members a little bit because they're not part of that locals chat. So, I do some stuff like that. And then I usually end up watching around 10 or 10:30. And so it wouldn't quite line up. I'd have to really start watching it right at 9. So I don't know if that would work. But I did think about going live at like midnight last night. I was like, you know what? I'll hold off, gather my thoughts. I actually wrote notes for this, which I never like write notes for anything, but I actually wanted to write things down. One reason being there's so much going on in the show and Game of Thrones, type of show in general, but especially like the names of people you really have to, I feel like because they're so foreign because they're so different, because they're so fucking in this fantasy world setting, these types of names, I feel like they're a little tough to remember, at least for the first couple episodes. So it's one of the reasons I try to take notes for everything too. What else we got? Everybody loves Damon. Read the books. Do you want to know what happens? I do know what happens. Or at least I have an idea of what happens. Now I am basically I'm in Fire and Blood right now, all the way up into the point we are in the show. That's about where I'm at. So I'm kind of caught up to the end of the reign of Jaehaerys and the start of the reign of Viserys. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I have the Cliff Notes version of everything that happens after that, and the Dance of Dragons and things like that, and obviously what this is all setting up. But I have not read the book in its entirety for that. Not for that, at least. I see Michael Ruka. What's up? The cell swords are really dumb. Well, that is one criticism I have. I have an issue with. I love the ending sequence, the end battle that we see, but I do think that those guys are kind of retarded. I think the crab fear is kind of retarded to send them out. But we'll talk about that. Mike Hill for $5. What's up, Mike? Says episode 3 is the best so far, except for the hand of the king's choice for the princess to marry. Well, listen, I think that there's some people that are like, oh, I'm creeped out by this. Like, oh, look at how young they're talking. It's like, that's part of this. This is set in a medieval time reference, so things that happened back in the day, things that people were like betrothed to or engaged to, and it's like, oh, well, they're not gonna actually fuck until she turns 13 or 14 or 15 or whatever. Like, that's the world in which this is derived in. So yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it's weird, but that's the reality for these people. And I don't think they're saying there's anything good about that. That's kind of what this series is about. It was brutal and terrible. So, yes. But anyway, Geek Freak is here. Hello. The freak is in the house. George Gator says, I want to watch this show, but can't get over how bad Game of Thrones ended. Plus, football season takes up most of my weekends now, plus no HBO. Well, that'll do it. It is on HBO Max, so if you're subscribed to HBO Max, you can watch it when it comes out. I totally get that. And like I said, I'm going to get into it here in about a minute or two as people roll in. See Blabbering Collector here with their lit liquor insult. But I did not think this was going to be any good. I hated the way that Game of Thrones ended. I think the last 3 seasons were not very good. We're not up to what we saw in those first 4 seasons by any stretch of the imagination. And I thought this was going to be more of the same. I saw the writers and stuff talking about the identity politics and everything associated with this. And I thought it was going to be bad. And I called it. I said, I think this show is going to be bad. But you got to keep an open mind. And for me, I was surprised when I went in there and I really liked episode 1 and I really liked episode 2. So I should have done reviews for those. Maybe I will at some point. But we're going to start right now with an episode 3 review. Review, thoughts, live actions, what or live reaction, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it. Let's get. I got my notes in front of me here. You guys can see them if you want. I want to show you some of the notes I took along the way, right? So these are the notes I took while I was watching. So we'll be using that kind of as a template. We'll be using that as a template. So wasn't there? It's only 14 or 16. I think they aged her up a bit for the show as opposed to the book, but yeah, she's very young either way. Very, very young either way. And I will preface, my opinion about this show is very subject to change. I could hate the way that this season ends. I could not like the characters as they progress and as they age up and they change the actors and actresses and things like that. I could very much not like it. I do reserve my right to say that. But for now, first 3 episodes, I'm really, really enjoying it. Cannot lie. I cannot tell a lie. And I will not tell a lie. So episode 3, the prologue for episode 3, the last time on House of the Dragon, is basically making sure you understand what happened throughout these first 2 episodes. That not only was Rhaenyra initially given the heir title, she's heir to the throne. Viserys is named Rhaenyra as his heir, but then he ends up marrying Alicent Hightower, being pressured by Otto Hightower to do so. That shocks Rhaenyra, of course. You also get the recap of Corlys Velaryon being very pissed that Viserys did not want to marry his 12-year-old daughter, a Velaryon that would have, put their bloodlines together, that would have put her as the queen and all these things. Corlys is really pissed off, and he goes to Daemon and says, not only will your brother not marry the right person that he should marry, but he won't even help me do these things on the stepstones and, defend this area. We need to do it. I'm coming to you because I know you take action. And Daemon Targaryen and Corlys Velaryon go, assumingly, they're going to go to the stepstones and they're going to fight the crab feeder and the armies there. So after you get that intro, after you get that last time on House of the Dragon, we open up immediately with the crab feeder scene, where there's someone that he essentially nails to a post while there's crabs crawling all over him. And this person is cursing the crab feeder, screaming at him, insulting him because he knows he's sitting there and he knows he's about to die a terrible death. And as the crab feeder is out there, as all these people are out there, all the people on the crab feeder's side, you see the dragon come in. You see Daemon on Caraxes come in and burn everybody up. And the guy who's sitting there, the guy who's like nailed to the thing, the guy who's been eaten by crabs, he thinks, my prince David, he's come to the rescue. He's coming to save me. And when Caraxes lands, it just smashes that guy. So immediately this dude who's so happy to see Daemon taking action, he gets killed because Daemon and Caraxes do not care what they land on. They're just there to wreck shit up. So as Caraxes is doing exactly that, wrecking shit, flame on, just killing a bunch of people, they retreat. They start retreating inside the caves. And once they do that, there's really nothing that Daemon can do on Dragonback. There's really nothing he can do because they're retreating. The fire can't really do anything. And all of a sudden, you just start getting arrows launched at Daemon and Caraxes. And Daemon gets hit in the shoulder. And it seems like Caraxes actually feels that. Like his dragon is so linked with Daemon that after Daemon gets hit, Caraxes actually, kind of lets loose a cry and is upset. Now, whether that was actually intended to be they're that linked that they can almost feel each other's pain, or whether it's just he got upset because he knows he got hit, who knows? One or the other. But he has no other choice but to take off and get out of there. All of a sudden, we're back in King's Landing. And we didn't know exactly what the timeline shift would be, but they established very clearly, just like they did in the second episode, in a pretty easy way. They established that about 3 years have passed since the end of episode 2. Some big things that they establish immediately is, one, Aegon, so the firstborn son of King Viserys and Alicent Hightower, his second wife, is now almost 2 years old. It's his name day. And what you get with this conversation between Otto Hightower and a lot of the other lords is that all the lords essentially are expecting him to name Aegon as the heir. Sure, they all said, we respect your wishes to use Rhaenyra, that she's going to be your heir. Okay, I guess we'll bend the knee for this thing. But in reality, now that we have a man, Aegon, it's going to be Aegon, right? Aegon is going to be your heir. And in fact, the name of this entire episode is second of his name, which heavily implies if Aegon were to take the throne, he would be Aegon the second of his name. Now, if he doesn't take the throne, that wouldn't apply in any way, shape, or form. It's only actually if you take the throne that you get that whole second, third, fourth, whatever it may be applied to your name. That's a whole different thing in Game of Thrones. But not only is Aegon now 2 years old, but also Alicent is pregnant, extremely pregnant. Again, with, I believe it's going to be a daughter, if I'm right with the lore, but I don't really know. We do not know whether that's going to be a boy or a girl as of yet. But you can tell that Viserys King Viserys is under a lot of pressure to send help to Daemon and Corlys because the war is not going well. So whenever that actually took place that we saw in the beginning, they're a little fluid on it. Was it like initially when they came to stop the crab feeder and then they just retreated in the caves? Or is that a more recent thing? We don't have a ton of information regarding that, but we do know that the war is not going well because they're going in the caves, which means they are not able to really be attacked by dragons. And Corlys and Daemon just don't have a ton of men to actually do what needs to be done. So the war is not going well in the stepstones. Viserys doesn't want to intervene because he's not the one that started the war. He never wanted to get involved. Corlys went behind his back to go to Daemon, who's already, betrayed him a couple times, at least in his mind. So he doesn't want to help them. We then get to a scene of Rhaenyra out in the Godswood, sitting there reading a book like she was before, having a song played to her. And Alicent comes up, who is now the queen, who was her best friend, who she felt betrayed by when it gets announced that her dad's marrying her best friend, rightfully so. Alicent comes out there and immediately undermines Rhaenyra's authority as princess, using her authority as queen, effectively saying the king is ordering you to come with us because for Aegon's second name day, they're going to go to the Kingswood and they're going to do a hunt. All of this is super reminiscent of what we see in Game of Thrones with Robert Baratheon, when Robert Baratheon goes out to the King's Woods. And that's eventually the way he dies, right? When he gets, gored by the boar and all of that. So we kind of already have that in our minds when we go to the Kingswood, and those parallels and similarities are only going to continue when we actually get there. So you can tell there is a ton of friction between Rhaenyra and Alicent, and between Rhaenyra and Viserys. Viserys effectively is talking, at least throughout the beginning of this episode. Viserys is saying, you have been distant. I haven't really been connected to her ever since I made the decision to marry her best friend, Alicent, because I loved her, even if it might not have been for the good of the realm, even if I didn't give her much of a heads up as I probably should have. But one thing that this episode does is it shows that Rhaenyra is very upset because she feels she's been betrayed. She feels like her position as heir is being threatened and that it's really not serious anymore. It's only a matter of time till she gets replaced by Aegon. But Viserys is under a ton of pressure, right? Viserys is under a ton of pressure to name Aegon as the heir, and he hasn't yet. And we're going to talk more about that as we get a little bit later. But they do eventually, Rhaenyra, since she's ordered to by the queen, goes to the Kingswood. She rides in the carriage with Alicent and with Viserys and with Aegon. And Viserys mentions, you're going to have to get married soon and give me some grandkids, things like that. Rhaenyra doesn't seem too keen on that. They do eventually all go to the Godswood. They have a big tent set up with all these lords and ladies in there. There's a big bunch of the ladies who are gossiping about what's going on, essentially talking shit about King Viserys because, even though it might not be his war in the Stepstones, his inaction is what caused it. That Daemon's recklessness, that Corlys going out there, it's all a result of Viserys' poor leadership. And Rhaenyra kind of gives some, bites back at that a little bit during that scene. But then we have a scene with Jason Lannister, who effectively, with approval from Viserys, is going to court Rhaenyra. He goes up there and he's like, "Hey, Rhaenyra, I'd really like it if you become the Lady of Lannister, and we'll go to Casterly Rock, and I'll build you a pit for your dragons there. There's enough room." And she's like, "Okay, this guy's coming on to me, whatever." But then she's like, "What do you mean? Why would I need a pit for my dragon?" And he's like, "Well, obviously, you're going to get renamed, or Aegon's going to be the heir, and you're going to be just another princess to be married off." That pisses her off because that's kind of confirmation of everything that she's felt. So if her dad did know about this and did send Jason Lannister to court her in that way, she's assuming that he means to name Aegon as the heir and supplant her. Her position, once again, is threatened. Let's see where I am here. Make sure I get caught up on all these notes. So after that, she goes right into the tent where a bunch of people are having dinner and wine and all this stuff. And, happy. We're being happy. We're getting drunk with all the servants around here. We're going to go on a big hunt. And she confronts Viserys and says, "You sent Jason Lannister to do this. You just want to marry me off. You just want to get rid of me so you can name Aegon, the son you always wanted, as your heir." And Viserys kind of goes off and yells at Rhaenyra. And it's like, listen, you have to get married at some point. Like, this is a tradition. This is what you have to do. It's your responsibility. Even I'm not above responsibility and duties and all these things. And they have eventually it draws so much attention that Otto Hightower, Hand of the King, has to step in and say, "Hey, maybe you should keep it down a little bit. Maybe you're drawing a little bit too much attention." Rhaenyra is pissed off, and she actually runs away. She gets on horseback and just leaves the camp. Now, Sir Criston Cole, the person she obviously has a crush on, we saw him in that first episode. We obviously saw the battle with Sir Criston Cole and what a good warrior he is. And then in the second episode, he gets named as part of the King's Guard. You know, he's sworn to protect the king and to protect her. So he follows her to make sure she stays out of trouble. That is going to be a big second part of this entire episode. Real quick, Shake for $2. Thank you, Shake. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Now, let me see here. All right, caught up to my notes now. So she does run away. Criston Cole follows her and stops her, and they start talking, and he's kind of one of the only people she feels like she can talk to. They obviously have this connection. They're setting up this, kind of flirtatious relationship between them, which I don't know if that's going to end very well for her, just a guess. But he says, listen, I kind of get where you're coming from with the pressure you're feeling. But I think a lot of people would change places with you. I come from a place of very low standing, and I think a lot of people in the realm would trade places with you. You don't have it that bad, at least not as bad as you think you do. So back to King Viserys, back to all this. They get informed that there's a white stag out there, that there's a white deer. I think they call it a white hart of the forest. I think that's what they're calling it, hart instead of deer or stag, whatever you want to call it, right? It's the stag. And they say that they've sighted a white hart, and this white stag is essentially a symbol of rulership. Before the Targaryens came, this is kind of one of the symbols they looked at in Westeros as, wow, if you kill a white stag, that's like a symbol that you are meant to lead. So everyone obviously sees this on Aegon's second name day, and this white stag, that could be a big hint, Viserys. That could be a big hint that, maybe this means that Aegon's supposed to be the heir, because all these people are pushing him for that anyway. And in one of the things that they do, I think, pretty well in this show is show that Viserys does not like confrontation. He hates confrontation, in fact. It's not something that he likes to do. He stays away from it, whether that's with Daemon, pushing Daemon away so he doesn't have to actually confront him, whether that's the stepstones, the battle that's going on the stepstones. And then this entire thing with Aegon and Rhaenyra and people pushing him, he doesn't want to talk about it. So he kind of proceeds to tell off Otto Hightower, because Otto Hightower, while they're out here, he's like, you know what? I know you've been thinking about it, my grace, your grace. I know you've been thinking about this. I think that you should betroth Rhaena to Aegon. So marry brother and sister. Well, half brother and half sister. That's what his advice is. His advice is for Rhaenyra, the current heir to the throne, to marry her brother, half brother, and his grandson, of course, because Otto Hightower is the father of Alicent Hightower, because, of course, that's going to be good for him. And Otto Hightower now is scheming every way to make sure he can get a little closer to power, that Aegon can get a little closer to power. And that's his, suggestion that happens. And Viserys is like, everybody just wants to tell me what they want me to do. And he doesn't want to deal with it. So he sits there and he gets drunk and he gets drunk and he gets more and more drunk. And he also, it also does look like he's just in pain. And I think they've already set up that he has a lot of health problems. He looks tired. He looks like he's in pain the entire time. And I feel like they do a good job of showing that and showing, whether it's under the extreme mental pressure or whether it has something else entirely, whether it's actually an ailment, a physical ailment, all this, years that he's been having problems, health problems, that's weighing on him a lot. And maybe he's just drinking to dull the pain. I don't know. But then you have Lord Strong. I think it's Lionel Strong, who's like master of laws or something. I think it's Lionel, but either way, Lord Strong comes up to him and he thinks he's going to, oh, what? You want me to marry Rhaenyra to your son, I bet. And he's like, no, I actually think I'm coming to you 3 years later to say basically the same thing I told you before. A marriage between your daughter and the Valerians makes way more sense. Not only are those bloodlines, you would strengthen those bloodlines, but Corlys Valerian, if Rhaenyra marries the son of Corlys Valerian, you're going to have that money, you're going to have that good relationship, it makes the most sense for the realm if Rhaenyra marries, the oldest son of Corlys Velaryon. And his name is Laenor Velaryon, who will show up later here. So that's, now you have this. You have, hey, maybe you should marry a Lannister. Maybe you should marry Aegon. Maybe she should marry Laenor Velaryon. You have all these options now that Viserys just doesn't want to fucking deal with. Now we go back to Rhaenyra and Criston Cole in the woods. They're talking more, and all of a sudden, a boar attacks. Knocks Criston Cole on his ass, and now it's a CGI boar. I don't think the boar looks very good. But then it's like on top of Rhaenyra. She's trying to fight it off. Criston Cole comes through, boom, and like just sword right through the boar's neck, head area, whatever it is. It kind of slumps over, but it's still moving a little bit. And Rhaenyra's like, has just been saved by Sir Criston Cole. But as it's laying there, it still is not quite dead. It still like kicks around a little bit and starts squealing. And Rhaenyra freaks out. Grabs a freaking knife, jumps on top of it, boom, 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 boom. It like stabs it a bunch. Blood just spatter all over her. So all of a sudden, you kind of see Rhaenyra snap. You see this like killer instinct from Rhaenyra Targaryen. That's the first time we've seen anything quite like that. Then we go back to Viserys, who is really fucking drunk, and he's standing in front of the fire contemplating everything. Alicent Hightower, his wife, comes up to him and starts talking to him, and he's basically like, I don't know what to do. I had this dream. I had this vision. A lot of Targaryens have had these dreams and visions that came true. I had a dream as vivid as could be that my son was wearing the crown of Aegon, that my son was going to be king, and that's what I was pursuing. Even though I never had that dream again, even though I wanted to have that dream, I wanted it to come true. And eventually he says, that's why my first wife died, because I wanted that so badly. I wanted to force her to have another kid. And eventually I lost both of them. And he's like, and I honestly, the reason I named Rhaenyra heir is because I never thought that I would get married again. I never thought that it would happen. I would never have another son, another daughter. So I named Rhaenyra heir. But now I don't know what to do. Now that I have Aegon with you, does that dream mean anything? Can that dream mean anything? So this is what Viserys is struggling with. And I think it's also important to note, even though we don't get a ton of reference for this in this series, when you look at the book, preceding Viserys was King Jaehaerys, who had a very peaceful reign. Like the very long, peaceful, prosperous reign of Jaehaerys. And people loved him, people respected him because he did a lot of things to improve Westeros, because, he kept peace for so long. Whereas when you had with like Aegon and Aenys and Maegor, like all these kings before, it was just a tumultuous time. A lot of lords shifting alliances, a lot of people fighting, like all this stuff. You didn't have as much of that with Jaehaerys. So Viserys has a lot of pressure on him to maintain all those things. That's one of the things I think he feels, the weight on his shoulders for all of this. Now, fast forward to the next morning. They have finally found the deer, the stag, the hart, whatever you want to call it, they were looking for, but it's not white. So you have Otto Hightower, and you have all the lords, you have all these people that are surrounding Viserys that are like, hey, look, your grace, we found this for you. We captured him, and they've just got this deer tied up so it can't really move too much. And it's people on either side of it that, have ropes in each hand. And you're like, okay, he's just going to go and kill this thing now, but it's not white. And of course, what a lot of people were saying was, hey, if this is a white stag, that really means that, Aegon, that's meaningful to Aegon, that you really should make Aegon the heir, but it's not white now. And you have these flashbacks of Robert Baratheon, what happened in the Kingswood. He was drinking, he got killed by a boar, all these things that are going on, like what we saw happen, or he got gored by a boar. So with all that being said, I was like worried, is something going to happen to Viserys right here, right now? Is that the way that they're going to do it? But no, he was fine. But he goes up with a spear to kill it. And he looks so timid, like he doesn't want to do it. Again, this is a person that does not like conflict, seemingly does not like taking a life, does not have a killer instinct. Opposite of what we just saw from Rhaenyra a couple minutes ago with that boar. For Viserys, it's like, he hesitantly kind of spears it, but one time is not enough. It takes 2 tries for him to actually put it down. And finally, this deer is dead. Everybody claps. There's a round of applause, but he just looks so tired and weak and ill and just done with everything. He really looks like he's miserable. He looks 100% like he's miserable. But I think he sees that as confirmation that, no, I should not name Aegon my heir. This isn't a white stag. This isn't something I want to do. Nothing like that. You can tell he's very much conflicted. Then we go back to Kristen Cole and Rhaenyra as they're walking back to try to meet back up with everybody. You see the white stag just comes out. The white stag just appears. And it looks like Kristen Cole's getting ready to take a sword out. And Rhaenyra's like, no, just let it go. So they see the white stag. Rhaenyra sees the white stag. Viserys does not see it. So now we go back to King's Landing, and Viserys is drunk. He's hung over from everything that happened. Otto Hightower goes to Alicent and is like, listen, you need to get him to marry Rhaenyra to somebody. Like, Rhaenyra needs to be married. Like, we need to make this stuff happen. And Alicent is like, listen, Rhaenyra's her own person. Rhaenyra will marry somebody eventually, but it just has to be her choice. And Otto's like, listen, the king is not, he's not going to take action. You need to make him understand this. That's exactly what she does. She goes in there, talks to him, and, you know, essentially convinces Viserys that Rhaenyra has to get married. But you have to make her think that it's her choice to do so, whoever she chooses. And finally, we have, well, I should say this first. I should back up for just a second. There's a letter from Vaemon Valerian, who I think is Corlys's brother or something. I don't know if he's actually his brother in the books, but I think essentially he's the Sea Snake's brother in this, at least. Essentially pleading for help. Fighting the Stepstones is not going well. Daemon is not going to win this. Corlys is not going to win this. They need help. It's begging for help. And Alicent is like, listen, I know you don't want to help them because they betrayed you. They started this whole thing. But what's best for the realm? Is it really best for the realm to let them die there, to let the Stepstones be taken over? Or is it best for the realm if you put a stop to this? Kind of pushing him to realize that it's something that he needs to do. Now we finally get a discussion between Rhaenyra and Viserys. Like, they're alone. There's nobody else to get in the middle of it. And Rhaenyra lets out everything she's been feeling. It's like, listen, I feel disrespected. I feel like you're just going to replace me. Like, you want to replace me. You've always wanted to replace me. From the moment I was born as a girl, you always wanted a son to become your heir. And now that you finally have that, I know it's only a matter of time. And Viserys reveals to Rhaenyra, he's like, no, I have no intention of doing that. I'm not going to betray you, Rhaenyra. I'm not going to supplant you. This is yours. I want you to have this. And I think there you have this. I think that, you know, finally both the characters know what we've seen all along, is that Rhaenyra is pissed off because she thinks her territory is being intruded on. But really, Viserys is going through a lot by continuing with Rhaenyra as heir. Like, that, he is under so much pressure to name his son the heir. But he's going through that. He's pushing these people back. He's giving pushback against them because he wants to do right by Rhaenyra, because he has no intention of, you know, naming Aegon heir. It's going to be Rhaenyra. He's made his decision. And he's had to go through a lot of fucking shit because of that. And I think Rhaenyra finally understands that as well. It's like, okay, if I believe what you're saying, you have been through a lot of shit. And you kind of get that resolution. And I think she trusts her father that he's being truthful when he says that. Then he realizes, let me see if I have any notes here. I want to make sure I get the, important part. So Viserys is like, listen, I'm not going to supplant you as heir, but you have to get married. You do need to get married. That is a requirement. Like, we all have to do this. We need to strengthen the realm. We need to strengthen our claim. We need to strengthen the throne, all these things. So regardless, you need to marry someone, Rhaenyra, and it needs to be someone that improves our standing. He says, I'm going to let you make that decision, but it's something you have to do. And she kind of throws back in his face, listen, if you wanted to do something that was good for the realm, that would strengthen the realm, shouldn't you have married that little girl Valerian? And he kind of like takes it and he's like, yeah, you know, I probably should have, but I didn't. He married Alicent. But he says, you can make the decision, but you have to marry someone. And I'm sure that'll play out in next episodes. Now, we go back to the Stepstones. So we started the entire episode at the Stepstones with Daemon and the dragon and all this shit. This is the first time we're actually going back there, and that's the way we're going to end the episode. So we get to it, and we get there, and you can tell things are not going well. The Valerians are there. They're complaining about everything. They're like, listen, we're running out of food. We're running out of everything. We're running out of men. Like, we can hold off for, maybe like a month, a fortnight. Maybe we can hold off for a month or something. But I think a fortnight's like 40 days. Am I right? Not 100% sure about that. Either way, we can hold out for a little while, but we have to make a push to end this now. Daemon is not going to win this war for us. They're blaming Daemon, specifically Corlys's brother, I believe, Vaemond. I think Vaemond. It's kind of tough to tell in this moment exactly who that is, but I think that's Vaemond Valerian, the same person that wrote the note asking for help. But one of the Valerians is saying, Daemon, it's Daemon's fault that all this is happening. He should go out there to try to drive everybody into a trap, something like this. And Daemon lands. Daemon walks up, and everyone's like, wow, this is kind of awkward because we were just blaming Daemon for all of these failures. You also see someone else. You also see, I want to make sure I get his name right. Laenor. Yes, you also see Laenor Valerian, who is a dragon rider and who is the son of Corlys, who they've suggested should be a good match for Rhaenyra. So you see him, that introduction as well. Daemon walks up, and it's awkward because everyone's fucking talking shit about him. Things aren't going well. He feels like he's going to lose. They feel like he's going to lose. He feels like a fucking failure. But then a messenger comes out from the king. Messenger comes out from the king, and they do a voiceover of Viserys saying, dear brother Daemon, I know the war is not going well. We're going to help. We're going to come and save you guys. We're going to come and help you. And Daemon freaks out. Daemon freaks out and beats the crap out of the messenger who delivers this message because he's mad. Daemon would rather die than have his brother help him. That's really the way it is. Daemon's done a lot of these things to try to prove his worth, to try to prove who he is, to prove that he should be respected. And if he goes home empty-handed, if they quit, then he's a failure. If his brother has to come save him, he's going to be seen as a failure. So much of this is about Daemon's perspective and Daemon feeling like he's not doing enough. So Daemon freaks out, starts hitting this guy. You don't even get a line from Daemon. He just starts hitting him. And then next thing you see him rowing by himself, no dragon, just rowing a boat across. And he starts walking through shore, just, bodies everywhere. Clearly this is where the battles have been fought. You can see caves in front of him and everything. He rips off a little white rag, puts it as part of a flag, and holds it up. He's like, hey, I'm here. I'm waving it around. I'm waving my surrender flag. And people start to creep out, including the crab feeder. People start to creep out, and you can see, they're like, all right, what's going on here? What exactly is this? What's happening? And Daemon plants the flag. He takes his sword out, just holds up his sword as an indication of I'm done. I'm surrendering, blah, blah, blah. And the crab feeder kind of is like looking all around. I'm looking for fucking dragons because, again, this motherfucker, if we come out there and he's got his dragon, we're kind of screwed. So nothing's going on. No dragons. They start slowly coming out. The crab feeder nods at his men. Hey, go up there, go see what's going on. Daemon gets on one knee with his sword held up, surrendering. And, people start to creep out more. There's more people that are coming out that are willing to come out over this. And Daemon lets his sword get taken. This guy picks up the sword. He's like, I guess he's surrendering. And then he pulls out a knife, slashes that guy, takes his sword, slashes the other guy, and all of a sudden shit's going down. So Daemon charges forward, and Matt Smith is intense in this. And in some of the after show material, they talked about, they wanted you to see Daemon Targaryen in action. They wanted you to see what a fierce warrior can think on his feet, can ad lib, can do all these things, but also kind of doesn't fucking care if he dies. That's kind of the way that you feel that he's fighting. And he's running full speed to try to make it to the crab feeder while slashing people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that he's kind of running by. They're coming up to stop him. He's slashing. But then the archers finally wake up. The archers start taking aim, and they're trying to get Daemon down. He runs through a hail of arrows, does not get hit. Somehow does not get hit. But continues to mow his way down through those first couple people. As that happens, more people get sent out from the caves, exposing themselves. Crabfeeder's still looking around, nothing going on. But more people start to rush out. Daemon finally after cutting down a bunch of people, finally gets hit with 3 arrows. I think one in like the leg, like one in the chest, one right here, something like that. But 3 arrows, and he like stumbles and like pulls his way to cover, and you could see like it's not going to go fucking well for him because now he's surrounded by people. And as he snaps the arrows, as he pulls himself to his feet, you think, all right, Damon's going to have this last stand. He would rather die than wait for his brother's help. This is what he's going to do. And then the fire comes because Lenor Valerian, on top of his dragon, fucking burns all those people right around Damon. And as that happens, you see Corlys Valerian, you see the rest of their forces kind of ambush. Now that these people have been drawn out stupidly, and this is my criticism of this entire thing, you didn't need to send that many people out to get Damon. You could have very much held your forces back and waited for Damon to do something, waited for Damon to come. You could have done a lot of stuff if you're the crab feeder in those forces. So I think the entire premise of it coming out was dumb, but I think it ended up a really cool scene. But you see the Valerian forces crash into these people, start hacking them to pieces. And now Damon, realizing that they've come, that the cavalry's come, that this trick worked, they're engaged now. He turns, he looks at the crab feeder who retreats back into the caves. Damon goes straight there. You don't see a final face-off. All you see is Damon dragging the torso of the crab feeder through shallow, very shallow water. And like you see intestines and blood, kind of pouring out as he's dragging this torso of a dead crab feeder. And they come together and he's done it, right? They did it. Him and Corlys were able to do this without help from Viserys. They did it themselves. Damon finally has this big victory. Damon, all he wants is this respect. That's what Damon wants. It's what he's wanted for the first couple episodes. He wants attention. He wants the respect that he feels like he deserves. And by getting this victory, by accomplishing what they set out to do without the help from the king, that even though it was sent, did not arrive in time. That's a big moment for Daemon Targaryen going forward. And I think it's going to propel him for the rest of what we see in episode 4. That's it. That's how the episode ends. So I don't know how long I've been talking. I feel like I've been going for a while. What was the crab feeder's story? I don't know. He was a guy that drew together a bunch of people and then fucked them all up, I guess. Not sure. I think one thing that was interesting, it did look like, I didn't mention this in the review, but it did look like they showed the crab feeder having like grayscale, the thing that they showed in Game of Thrones that if you like can spread. We saw a couple people have that in the Game of Thrones series, and it looked like he had a very advanced case of that. I don't know if that's the way it was in the book. I'm not sure, but you did have Daemon like touching him, grabbing his arm and carrying him through. Maybe he's not touching him on his grayscale arm. I guess I'd have to rewatch and check. I don't think that's going to play any part going forward. I don't think that's part of Daemon Targaryen's story, anything like that. But I thought it was interesting that they did show that. I don't know if it'll mean anything for the future. But that's my summary. I don't know if you guys like this or not. I might, if this goes well, I might do this on a lot of other ones. Let's see. Shake from Hunger Team with that $2. Blue-Eyed Scorpio for 5. I'm dipping out, just throwing a like. I don't want spoilers. If word of mouth stays positive, I'll binge it later. I'm still jaded from Game of Thrones. I totally hear you. I totally hear you on that one. The Doctor, 14 Blu-ray reviews for £5. Went to WWE Clash at the Castle in Cardiff on Saturday. It was amazing. Very cool, man. That's awesome, the Doctor. That's very cool. But anyway, I like it. I even though a lot of people are saying, hey, this series is slow, it's clear what they're setting up, and I think they're doing a great job of showing all the perspectives. They're showing Daemon's perspective, so you understand, like, you very much understand, like, what Daemon's motivations are. I think that the series, even though he's weak, and even though he's non-confrontational, you have a lot of sympathy with him, because this is a guy who just wants to do the right thing. He wants to make everybody happy. And I think there's even a line at some point in this episode where he's like, it feels like I'm cursed to, make one person happy and piss one person off no matter what I do. And that's kind of his thought process. He doesn't like to make these decisions. And I feel like he does feel the weight of the king before him. Jaehaerys his grandfather. I feel like he feels the weight of that long rule, that long, peaceful, prosperous rule for Westeros. And he wants to be remembered in that same way, but he also wants to do right by his family because his family is really, really important to him. Rhaenyra is very important to him. And even if that's not the right move, it's what he promised her, and it's what he thinks that he should continue to do. So I think you see that the series is a conflicted, weak person. So you do have sympathy for him in the position he's in, even if you might not agree with like kind of what the things he's doing. And when it comes to Rhaenyra, I think they're showing that Rhaenyra doesn't really know what she wants, to be honest with you. When we started this series, Rhaenyra was perfectly comfortable not being an heir. I don't think she ever had really any desire to be heir to the throne. She was fine with her Uncle Daemon being the heir. And then, when the baby eventually came, it seemed like she was pretty okay with that happening too. With that being the heir. It didn't seem like she was like, I really want to be heir, but it kind of gets forced upon her, surprisingly. And now that it is, we saw in episode 2, she feels like she needs to start learning, needs to know more about this. One of my criticisms in episode 2, which I didn't do a review on, one of my criticisms was she makes a like extremely rash decision that there's no ramifications for, at least not that we've seen so far. And I feel like we should have seen her have more ramifications for making a rash decision rather than her just being right. You know what I mean? But when it comes to this episode, I think you find that even though she didn't want it at the beginning, she wants it now. Like, this is what she's been promised. She's set her mind on this. She's going to be heir, but it seems like that's hopeless. It seems like what Rhaenys told her, that, no woman could ever take the Iron Throne. These men won't allow it. It seems like that's gotten to her. Like, she feels maybe that is true now. So overall, I think that these 3 characters are being depicted really well, and you understand you understand like what's going on for them. You understand their conflict. You understand their desires at this point in time. And it's all leading up to a big fucking fight with a bunch of people who feel like they deserve respect. They deserve this throne. With a bunch of people who may have been considered friends at one point betraying each other. With a bunch of people who, lose all perspective in their quest for glory and, a glory and power, whatever it may be. And what we saw in Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire as well, it's what we're going to see in House of the Dragon going forward. So far, I'm really liking it, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think. And it's good to see all the people in chat. It's good to see all of that because, yeah, I'm liking it so far. I am worried when we do another time jump, what's going to happen. I'm not a big fan, just a little bit I've seen. I'm not a big fan of the chick who's going to be adult Rhaenyra. I'm worried about that going forward, but I'll judge it when I see it. Because I didn't think I was going to like any of this series. I've really liked it so far. Mad Cat for 5. Matt Smith is amazing. Great story for Game of Thrones. Rings is trash. Rings of Power is trash. Mike Hill for 5. I've been wondering, since Jon Snow is a Targaryen, then why didn't he have white hair like the rest of them? Well, not all of them do. Not all of them do, although a significant amount do. There's no doubt about that. But not all of them do. But it is a trait for sure. Where am I? Okay, we're good there. Well, you're right, Mike. The vast majority of them certainly do. What's going to happen with little Aegon? I guess we'll see next time on House of the Dragon. But I'm going to get going. I just want to do a short review of this and put this out here and let people know my thoughts, because as much as I talk about shit that I hate, I like this so far. So we'll see how it plays going forward. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate y'all showing up in the chat. I see Jesus here. I see Abomination AJ. I see Lulu Blue. There are a lot of time jumps, but they're all kind of explained pretty well. Organically, we'll put it. I think they're explained organically. It's not like a fucking thing comes up on the screen. It's like 3 years later. It's like, okay, we're getting introduced, and it's like oh, this is Aegon's second name day. It's his second birthday, right? And then you talk about the fighting and the stepstones, and someone mentions, listen, it's been fucking 3 years of fighting. Like, it can wait a couple more days, right? That's what Viserys says. So I think they do a good job of kind of organically introducing it, in my opinion. Dexter Morgan, Sifu is here. Salty Scythian. Stone Cold is still here. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. With that being said, I got a couple things to do, so I am going to bounce out of here. Thank you guys so much for this. I appreciate you hanging out with me and listening to me talk about something that I actually like to see. And I will talk to you next time. I'm going to do this again on this channel. I'm going to do another live stream reaction for the next episode of House of the Dragon next week. I will talk to you later. Peace.